Well, it's Saturday the 28th of January. This is episode 2304 of 301 Permanently Moved Online, a personal podcast 301 seconds in length, written, recorded, and edited by me, at the JMO. If you read my blog, you'll already know that I went on one of my favourite shows last week. I spoke with J. David Osborne on Agitator Pod. Remember JDO? He guest hosted episode 2123. He had me on to talk about one of my favourite bits of media of all time, 2000s era boxing anime, Hajime no Ippo. But since the episode is about 2 hours long, we ended up speaking about all sorts of things: one's life's work, needing to get in shape, watching films when you have aphantasia, world running, the difference between worlds and stories, Web3, the internet as a side quest, what I've learnt from 10 years of meditating, and more. Trying something a bit different this week, as it's Eve's birthday tomorrow. Here's a clip from our conversation talking about how playing Xbox and going on Twitter are basically the same.
That's
Do you know what I mean?
Was it you who was saying this? That it's like that there are. I think this was you. This sounds like something you would say, where we've been on Twitter playing this game, and there's been a completely sort of parallel, but almost never touching stream of online interaction that is the gamer chat room, right? And that's the game that they've been playing.
Yeah.
And so I've experienced this once I got back into video games. So I finally had things to talk to some friends about that I hadn't spoken to in years because I'd been so...
And the only way you can talk to them is by playing a game together, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we play Call of Duty, which I'm terrible at. And, you know, they're like, it's okay, bro, don't worry. I'm getting plugged by a fucking 12-year-old somewhere. But when you talk to, like, they have no idea what you're talking about with Twitter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
They're on a different social network. They're just in a different bubble.
But it's like, it's almost like
reality tunnel.
Well, they are in a different reality tunnel. But what's interesting about it is like a lot of those guys have really good careers now. And a lot of them have kids and families, and it's almost like when I was 15, my PlayStation 2 got the red ring of death, and I said, I'm not playing video games anymore. I'm going to learn how to skateboard. And then Facebook came out, and I was like, okay, I'm going to use this to talk to girls. And, you know, like I was very girl crazy at the time. Right. And then I had friends who were not as girl crazy, and they were more into the games, and they stuck with it.
Mm-hmm.
But down that path of chasing, which, you know, talking to girls, it's a kind of sociability, right? Down that path led me to Facebook, MySpace, Facebook, Twitter. That's the evolution for me. And they never went through that. And so in a weird way, by playing these games with all the shit talk and everything, they ended up without these hangups that I have. They could have hangups of their own. I'm sure they do. But I don't see the ones that I have. So in a weird way, it's like being a shut-in gamer might have been the better choice. I think about that sometimes. You're talking about going back and seeing like how your
It's
life
just a
would look.
hobby though, right? At the end of the day,
Yeah.
it's a social hobby, and so is Twitter. Twitter is just a fucking hobby.
But the people who have the social hobby that's video games, for the most part, understand it as such, right? Because it's a clear game. Right?
No, it's because the rest of culture considers it to be a hobby.
Right. But Twitter is life to these people. Like people think that Twitter is real life.
Yeah, but have you ever met someone who's like really into musical theater or whatever, and they go to all the Broadway shows, and it's like the most important thing in the world to them? It's their fucking life.
Yeah.
You know, and that's actually a hobby.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same. It's exactly the same thing. But like theater kids and Twitter people are just like in that same thing. I did that episode last year on brainworms, right? Where you go into a world and then you become so accustomed to how the world operates that when you leave the world, you expect the new world that you've stepped into, or the real world, to operate in the same way as the world that you've just come from, you know?
Yeah.
And it doesn't work that way.
It doesn't work that way at all. So for you, I know you still post on Twitter. So it's just kind of the same idea that I have of just like strict limited use. I know you restarted your Tumblr.
You said to me the other week, no scrolling.
Yeah.
And there you have it. I think you can hear how much of a good time I was having. You can support the Agitator Boys on Patreon, and if you want to catch the next issue of my physical zine and support me, head over to thejbo.net/support.